Hey, this is Dr. Kid again. Just great to see you all online tonight. I'm so grateful that you're here. And we got a good show for you tonight. You know, it's a shake up. And you know how it is. We shake things up to make sure that we get all the parts involved in the systemic movement of it. We don't change anything. We just change your concept of things. And it's always good to take a look at your concept just to check to see if the way you have always seen things is that the only way to see it. And of course, the answer is not necessarily so. Just depends on what it is. But so the shakeup provides you with some of the vehicles to basically take a look at yourself, take a look at who you are, take a look at why you believe what you believe, how you got to that. Are you willing to take a look at something else and just even maybe make some changes? So we're here on the shakeup tonight, and I just want to welcome you. Would like you to like, follow, share, and subscribe. Of course, there is a lifeblood of this and all podcasts, so we want you to like, follow, share, and subscribe so that this podcast can grow. We can reach a large number of people with the information that we have just sharing with you here tonight. All right. And if you'd like to be a part of this show, if you'd like to be featured on the show, just call my office. It's drkidspeaks@gmail.com, and my team will get with you and get you on here. You can be on camera, you can be off camera. We'd rather have you on camera, but if you want to be off camera, what's more important is the information that you will share with us. So just come on, and especially some of you that put some really good information up on here. I want to thank those of you who follow locally here each week. And you put good information up, good questions, good statements, and all of these things make for a very interesting evening. All right, so continue to do that. All right, this evening, we're going to be going. For the last couple of weeks, I started doing some presentations on grief. Now, this is a huge subject. What the areas that I'm covering does not even begin to touch all the broad parameters of grief. So I'm going to be doing this again this week, and I'm hoping that you will continue to just hang in there with me. This week, we're looking at another component of grief, and it's called attachment. And attachment is very, very significant in the grief process because it speaks to the quality of the grief, not just the fact that you're grieving, but why do people grieve the way they grieve? It has a lot to do with attachment. Okay, so we're going to pull up the first, we're going to bring up the first slide right now, relationship between attachment and grief. And a lot of people don't understand that there is a relationship between the grief process and attachment. So here I am. Okay, we're going to go on to our next slide, and we're going to the phenomenon of attachment can be understood by the behavior of a newborn baby or a puppy. The attachment phenomenon is really something that it's easy to see and understand, but unless you can make it more concrete, it may be a little bit harder to understand. So I'm going to try to walk you through that this evening. Especially what we're doing here is we're not talking about physical attachment or structural attachment so much, although it does include that, but we're also talking about emotional attachment. That's the focus of tonight, because wherever there is physical attachment with a person, there is definitely going to be a quality of emotional attachment. Now, what does emotional attachment look like? Of course, we can't see it. We can't see it, but we can see how it's acted out. How it is acted out is done by different people. And remember, that's a part of what we talked last week, the difference between grieving and mourning. Grieving is your experience of the loss, and mourning is how you act out your experience of the loss. And so it is with attachment. You and there, of course, there are reasons why. So let's talk about this. The phenomenon is best understood, in a newborn and a new puppy. So just think about this. When you have a puppy or a newborn child, that their world is so completely wrapped around yours. They make sense out of everything about themselves based on your availability to them. And they want you to be available to them so that they can feel safe, they can feel secure, and they can begin to trust themselves and learn how to trust other people, even trust the environment in which they live. So you will discover. I know our son. He had a puppy here one time several years ago. The puppy was maybe just a few weeks old, and is still a little bit wobbly leg kind of a thing. And that the puppy was totally dependent on us. Wherever we went, the puppy would go. And if we were not available, if we were out of sight, the puppy would start screaming, making noises like that, which was to say, listen, I don't feel safe because my safety person is not here. So when that happens, then a lot of things in terms of their emotions can go into various levels of discomfort. So it is with the newborn, and they need you to be available. That's the key piece with the attachment. And so we attach ourselves as people for various reasons, just like a newborn puppy or a newborn baby. A newborn baby will gravitate towards people. And with a newborn baby, sometimes and even after they're newborn, and there's a few months, it doesn't matter sometimes how you might scold a child. After a while, the child will come back to you because you are their home base. They don't have enough of themselves to navigate the environment so that they can feel safe in themselves. So there is a component of safety, feeling safe in the phenomenon of attachment. And so as we grow older, and we become adults, let's jump to adults. As we jump to adults, we discover that we want to have various types of attachments and friendships. The first people we become attached to, of course, would be our family members. And as we grow away, we call that the growth and developmental stage. And we talk about the separation part, which we'll deal with in more details at another time. But as they go through that and they begin to become individualized in their experience, they don't just create vacuums. Children say they separate from parents. They create distance between themselves and parents and begin to attach themselves to their cohorts, their their teammates, the kids they go to school with, the kids they go to church with, kids of their age. That now becomes their central focus of attachment. And the greater the need for attachment, here, what I'm saying, the greater the need for attachment means that there is less of a robust self. The less robust self you have, the more you have a need for attachment. It's almost like someone walking with crutches. The crutches now become something that you are attached to or you are dependent on in order to help you to achieve your goal. It's like if you're in the building business, it's almost like having a scaffold. Sometimes you see them gutting a building, but they wrap it around with scaffolding because they want to keep the outside structure. But the inside structure now, which is the most vulnerable part, they need to protect that too as they take it apart. And so it is with the attachment piece. So we attach ourselves to people for a number of reasons, and so we need people to be available to us so that we can go through that. Because when they're not available, we become somewhat fragmented. So as they grow and individuate and widen their radius of self-actualization in their environment, they return to the object of attachment for physical and emotional. Here's what I'm calling putting this word on you: refueling. There is always this refueling process in relationships. If you want your relationship to work well, you've got to pay attention to the refueling process. I'm going to put it this way. I remember I left home one day. I was running late for work, so my gas gauge was like really touching on the empty. It was, And so I said to myself, "Listen, I will go to work. I think I got enough there by faith. God got me there, to work." And I said, "Well, I'm going to gas up on the way back home." And then I got this call, kind of emergency call, so I had to go see a family down in Decatur. So I jumped on 565 going west, and then I turned down on 65 south. And what happened, by the time I turned down on 65 south, got over the bridge, my car ran out of gas. How about refueling now, the attachment piece, okay? And so someone rescued me. So it is, what they did was they came, they got some gas for me and so on, got me back on road. So I was okay. So the refueling process is like that in your relationship. When you run out of the person or persons or group of people that you feel you need to attach yourself to, so you can feel safe and you can feel like you are important to some people, when they are not available to you, okay, and you run out of the fuel that you have for them, then you have to go through the refueling process. And how do you do that? You go and you try to find them. That's when you get into the attachment piece. You find that person, you attach yourself to that person, and then you begin to feel the way you want to feel. Okay, so that is very, very important. So just keep in mind the refueling process is important. Now, the thing about attachment, though, is that sometimes when people want to attach themselves to you, you may not have enough fuel, so you can refuel their need. Okay, and so it might put a drain on your system. We're talking about attaching yourselves to people, so when they're not available, you feel like there is a loss, which is a part of the grieving process. Christine, thank you. Any recommendation on how to make sure I'm staying fueled for myself? Now, Christine, let me tell you something. That is a very, very good question. And the last two words you have there, that is the key: to stay refueled for yourself. So I'm going to tell you how to stay refueled for yourself and how important it is for you to stay refueled for yourself. Now, Christine, I don't know. I think most of us has flown at some point in our lives. You get on this plane, and while it's taxiing or doing the pushback or somewhere, the captain comes on. He said, "Good afternoon," or "Good morning," whatever it is. "My name is Captain so-and-so, and we'll be flying to such and such, and take a couple hours to get there. We'll be flying at 37,000 feet." And he will tell you, or they tell you who his co-pilot is, and then he'll say, "I have some good people with you. They are like my family. They are in the cabin with you. They are our stewardess." And then he'll tell you what they're going to do and say, "Listen, please pay your attention to these stewardess now." Okay. And the stewardess, they tell you a whole bunch of things: where the lavatories are, the doors, windows, all kinds of things. If the light goes out, the strip tells you everything about that. And then they say this one thing. I'm talking, Christine, about how am I staying refueled for myself? So here's what they say. Say, in the event that there is a loss of power or pressure in the cabin, a mask will drop down from over your head. Put it over your face first before you put it over, before you put the other person's mask over their face first. Because if you don't do that and you are using energy to make sure that the other person is going well, then the energy that you're using for them is energy you don't have for yourself. You cannot resuscitate yourself if that person is dependent on you. You cannot resuscitate yourself if they're good. So you resuscitate them, and it's a little baby looking at you, and they don't know what's going on with you, and you can't help yourself. So the whole idea then is to make sure that you are biologically, biopsychosocially well. And when you take care of yourself first, that is not selfishness. That's an act of self-interest. Selfishness is when you withhold something from somebody. I'm using this very carefully now. When you withhold something from somebody, and by withholding it from somebody, it has negative consequence to them, okay? But self-interest is when you act in the best interest of yourself, making sure that you are okay, that you can take care of yourself and then take care of them. Self-interest says, when I'm good, I can make sure that they're good. When they're good, I'm good. So I'm good because I'm good for me, and I'm good because I've made sure that they're good. So the recommendation, how to make sure I'm staying fueled up. And the best thing here, Christine, is to take good care of yourself. And you got to be careful. Some people may, due to the attachment that they have to you and the role you play in their lives, okay, they might want more from you than you are able to give. And again, you must make sure that you take care of yourself first. And don't worry, some people might say things. Don't feel guilty. Feel like you're doing whatever you need to do, because people who are dependent on you need you to help them. But then when you are not around, they are out of favor for life or for whatever it is they need from you, because you are the supplier. You refuel them. So you need to really go ahead and refuel yourself. Hope that helped you there, Christine. So we're gonna pull that slide back up. So as they grow, okay. So when the object becomes unavailable, so in this relationship, like if we're talking about, say about, in my business, I hear a lot of stories about how people are attached to different people in their family, attached to, here's one that I hear a lot. People who were raised by their grandmother. Well, grandmother is old now, or older and getting old now, and grandma gets sick, and grandma, she passes away. And this person, because they were raised by their grandmother, okay, it means that all of their emotional sinew is wrapped up in the availability of their grandmother. The grandmother rules the world emotionally as far as they're concerned, okay? And so they have this deep attachment. They'll do anything for grandma. Why? Because grandma did everything for them. So they have a really good, deep attachment. And so when grandma is no longer, and I'm just using grandmother, it can be with anybody else in the family, So different people's got different levels of attachment. And object of attachment. Now, when I say object, I'm not talking about a thing. It's a object relation theory, which uses people as an object. It's not to denigrate somebody. So when grandma becomes unavailable, when that object becomes unavailable, everything that grandma brought to your life, that gave your life meaning, stops. It stops at that point, because you require grandma to be there to continue to refuel you as you go through life. But her unavailability means that everything there just stops. And because of that, there is a void, a vacuum in your life. And so it's kind of crazy the way sometimes, grieving works differently for different people. But one of the characteristics of grieving is we think that we grieve, that the only thing we do in grieving is grieving the physical loss of the person. Well, that is true, especially when they did a whole lot for you. Structurally, they cooked, they washed, they cleaned, they drove you, they did all the things and the fun things. We're gonna go to grandma. Grandma, gave us everything that mom and daddy don't want us to have. So grandma is a great place to go. And made us feel really good. But the other piece of this is that the greater the attachment that you have to somebody, and this can work in this attachment also works well when in marriages and dating or that kind of thing, or parental relationship with children. The greater the attachment that you have with a person, the greater the attachment you have with a person, when that person is no longer available, okay, the greater the vacuum that you feel and the pain that you feel and the loss that you feel, and your life becomes somewhat mangled to some degree, and you kind of lose focus of who you are, and why? Because the attachment says that you give yourself to this person to be attached, that so you can be attached. And when they're not available, it's not just their unavailability, but the part of you that you attach to them is no longer available to you, because in order for it to be available to you, they have to be available to you, because they become a conduit through which that piece of yourself becomes available to yourself. In other words, it might sound like kind of crazy, but what I'm saying here is this: listen. And how do we know that? Sometimes when people take a look at pictures, and a lot of pictures, and they say, man, I remember when we used to do this. I remember when we went to this place. I remember all the fun we used to have. And this bright beam comes over their faces, all because they are now being they're going down through memory lane because of the pictures. But the person's not there, but their mindset is still there. They can still think about that person. They think about all the fun that they used to have. You grieve that. You grieve that because that part of you is no longer available. It's gone with the person. And so we discover then that attachment is very, very important. It's very strong, very, very strong. And so some people, they go into depression, they go into anxiety, they go on, they feel abandoned. They might even feel angry. I've had people tell me that they are angry at so-and-so because they died. And the question they said is, now what am I going to do? You see the level, you see the degree of attachment, because it does come in degrees. What am I going to do? And so they have those are the kind of questions people ask when they have a deep level of attachment to that person. Why? Because going back to Christina's question, I don't have enough of me in me so that I can survive by myself, because without the person I'm attached to. And it's kind of funny, because the less I see myself, the less I see myself capable of surviving by myself, the more I'm going to look for people, places, or things to attach myself to. And we normally attach ourselves to people, especially when we say, listen, we start name dropping. Oh, I know so-and-so. I know so-and-so. I know so-and-so. And the more people in so-and-so that you know, then the more you tend to feel great about yourself. So when that person is not available, there's this fear. What's going to happen to me now? Anxiety, displacement. You feel displaced. Why? Because I used to go to my grandmother's place. Over there, I felt attached, but now I'm not there. I feel displaced. I'm out of place, and there is a sense of abandonment. Okay. Lack of stability. Where do I go now? Who is going to fill that void, that spot in my life? My safety is compromised. whenever I did not feel safe, I could go to my grandma or my granddaddy or my uncle or my husband or whoever. Some people, they find safety in being attached to their animals. This is why they have they have some people walk around with their animals, and I can't remember what they call them now, but they do have those animals that give people a sense of security. Like, and those are important for the people who need those, because you don't just go down the street and get one. You've got to. It's almost like they're prescribed. Yeah, they're prescribed by a physician or somebody who has assessed you and found the need for this as a stabilizing force. Okay, so then what happens is sometimes you go into emotional protest, and this emotional protest is when you get angry at the absent person. You get angry at the absent person. If the person is still alive, you can get angry at them in a very ferocious way sometimes. If the person is deceased, then there are times when you just don't want to take a look at their picture. You don't want to touch anything that belongs to them. You don't want to go to their homes. You don't do none of that kind of stuff. Why? Because when you go to them, when you reconnect emotionally with them, it just drives up the pain scale and the loss scale. It drives all of that stuff up. So the grief experience represents a departure from a desired state of normalcy. Everyone have a desired state of normalcy, health, and well-being. We all do that, and one of the ways we do that, we have a number of ways that different people will do this. Everybody's got their way of what normalcy is. How do I get there? How do I maintain this? And for some people, it's not people. For some people, your sense of normalcy has nothing to do with people. Why? Because if you've had too many losses in the past, we normally said, I don't want to invest in other people because they will one day leave me and I'm going to feel loss again. And it's going to bring back the pain that I had in the past. Okay? Because then you also have to deal with, anniversary pains, anniversary losses. And there is this anticipation that comes with coming up to an anniversary, that sometimes you just feel like you want to just sleep your way through it until after the fact. Okay, so you go into emotional protest, and one of the things that people do when they go into emotional protest is they go the route of anesthesia. I spoke about that once before. I'm gonna tell you, the anesthesia is not one of these things you go to your doctor to get when they're working on your tooth, or when you're in the hospital going to have surgery. The anesthesia can be anything. It can be food. Yeah. It can be spending hours in the gym working out. It can be spending just hours just reading for days at an end. Anything that stops you. For some people, is a variety of drugs. These are all things I call emotional anesthesia. And they are effective, but they are short-term. They have a short-term effectiveness. Okay, so you go into emotional protest. And so this grief experience is a departure from what is norm for you. And you try to recreate a norm out of abnormality, or, to go back to that place of well-being, to where you were. All right, we're going to take a look now at the next slide. Okay, and so there are degrees of attachments, and they go from dependency. Remember, we talked about the baby or the puppy. They have the babies, puppies, and the elderly. The younger they are, the more fragile they are, and the older they are, the greater their degree of dependency. This is why we have nursing homes, where people who have a greater degree of dependency, dependent on people to help them to be who they want to be, or to help them to recover the quality of life that they used to live. So you're saying, what does all of this have to do with grief? It has everything to do with grief. We're talking about what happens when a person who is in a nursing home or a care facility, and they can't do what they used to do. They may not know it, but they are grieving the loss of what they used to do. Listen to what they say. Man, I remember when I was such and such, when I was a younger kid. I did this in my 20s and my 50s. I did all these things, and now look at me. I'm just here, in a wheelchair or in a bed. They are going through active grief when they're going down. They're not just being picky and just talking about things just to be talking about things. They are grieving, even though they may not know that they are grieving. So attachment, then they were attached to the good days of their lives, and now those have changed. And then we have what we call interdependency, mutual dependency. Now, this one here can be a little bit tricky sometimes, because it's this dance. It goes back and forth. There, mutual dependency. I'm dependent more on you today. You're dependent more on me. So the next day, we go back and forth. It's like a dance. There is no specific line of demarcation, and you only know that based on your degree of need. It's based on this need. What do I need today, and what can my interdependency partner provide for me today? Problems come when both of you have a great need that you're not available to yourself, and that you cannot even be available to the other person. Interdependency, that happens a lot even in marriages. Okay. So so we have this interdependency, and then of course somewhere between dependency and interdependency is this independency, where you just want to be all by yourself. You just want to grieve by yourself. You don't want anybody to be there with you. You lock yourself off in a room, and you become an isolate, and other people are concerned about you, but you don't want to talk. And it's hard on those other people now, because now they are going through a certain set of loss and pain because of your physical availability, but verbally and emotionally, you've cut them off. And so the degree to which they were attached to you, now you have cut them off because you've isolated yourself from them. So this thing is so this whole business about attachment, it is not just, well, like magnet, you just go and you just got it. No. The dynamics is very, very important, and it's not so easy to understand. It is not always so easy to understand. Okay, so all these are some of the components of attachment. Okay, I think we got another slide that we're gonna look. Okay, Tracy Williams, based on degrees of attachment, are there degrees of depression? Yes. There are degrees of depression. Some people, of course, it goes all the way to major depression, clinically major depression, But some people tend, Tracy, to confuse or mix sadness with depression. Okay. And it's not necessarily the same. Sadness is when you have the blues and you can still function, all right, to some degree, but you're not necessarily running at 100. You're not running at 100, but you have the blues, and things are just not working well for you. Now, would I call that a degree of depression? other professionals may not call that, but I'm just going to put depression on a continuum, okay? And I'm going to say at the lowest end of the continuum for depression would be sadness. And then, of course, there are different depths of sadness. Why? Because different people have the capacity, the ability to handle different levels and stressors in their lives. Okay, it's just like when I work out, when I go to the gym and I work out, there are people in there, who are pushing all kind of crazy weight, and they're just doing it as easy as possible. Okay, for me, I'm not going to even try that because I'm not ready to go yet. So what I'm saying, there are different degrees of depression, like there are different degrees of strength. When somebody say I'm strong, a baby, a 5-year-old who can lift a 5-pound weight or a 10-pound weight, you say, man, that baby is strong. Now, if the person is 35 and they're lifting up 5 pounds, man, is that all you can do? Man, you're a weakling, 35-pound weakling, same weight, a 5-year-old strong person. So yeah, there are different degrees of depression. Now, what's the major issue here, though? The major issue here with depression is not necessarily the depression that you have or the level that you have been diagnosed to have. It's your capacity to function. Your capacity to function with minimal support or help. I break a leg, you break a leg, you have a certain kind of pain, I got a certain kind of pain, but your capacity, your pain threshold is different from my pain threshold. You can handle it better than I can. It doesn't mean that I'm not in pain. It doesn't mean that you're not in pain, but the degree to which you can handle it is based on your internal fortitude. How strong are you on the inside? How focused are you? How are you able to stay on track? So the depression, yes. Now, some people just can't do that. And this is where you need help. Help. Okay. Now, let me say this here. When it comes to the depression and needing help, some people don't, like I said, don't have the internal fortitude. And so they need more help. They need more crutches. I'm using that, and please don't take that wrong. I'm just because I'm going somewhere with this, okay? And so they need more help, more support. Let me use that. They need more support. But for some people, the support works so well. The support works so well that it takes them into a state of normalcy, but it's only because they have the support. And what happens here is this: because it works so well, they become so attached to this thing, to whatever it is, the medication, the person, the place, the thing, they become so attached to this that they no longer want to be independent. They just need that person, place, or thing to be available to them all the time so that they can have a sense of normalcy, but it's at a cost to the other person. And then the other person get upset and don't show up for a day or two, or don't make themselves available for a day or two, then they get mad, they get upset. They get upset. And one of the ways they say this is, they may, go into a position of moving backwards. And they start whimpering and crying and carrying on. Where have you been? You know I can't do this. And you know you're the only one. And they tell you all these things. Now you know that there is a great state of attachment. And so it is with depression. Be very careful how you attach yourself, okay, to things, people, places, and things that can help you feel better. The best thing to do is to work at your level of competency. With highest level of competency, lowest level of infusion of external help. Okay, external help. lowest level of external help, highest level of competency. And when you work with that, you will discover that you will be able to handle your depression in a much better way. And so there are some structure, part of the structure. There are always a cause, and I think we kind of touched on some of these before. There's a cause for attachment, and the cause for attachment is different for everybody. And so now I'm talking about a reason, a cause and a reason. I'm making a distinction here. Like if I'm driving down the street, God forbid, right? And I get a flat. So my car is not functioning like it should. The reason I'm not going very far, the reason I can't drive like I'm supposed to drive is because I got a flat. That is the reason. Now, the cause of that is, listen, I fell in a pothole that I didn't see. That caused it. And so the reason now, because of that, I got a flat. So even with attachment, what's the cause? What's causing this? How much need do you have that rests outside of your capacity to take care of yourself? That's what's causing it. Who left you? What resources do you have that you don't, that do you want that you don't have? And so these are some of the cause. And the reason then becomes the degree to which I can handle myself. The meaning for attachment then becomes, I don't have to be by myself. I don't have to handle this by myself. And the function of that is I can be as healthy as I can because I have a good meaning, I have good reason, I have cause. So I'm really looking for a good function, okay? Impacts of attachment. So the age of the unavailable person, that you were attached to, what could they do? What function did they fulfill in your life? At what age? For some people, when they are attached to babies. They're little itty bitty babies. They are attached to that baby, and you know that under some of the saddest circumstances, when this mother told me that she breastfed her baby, but the baby died after a few months. And she was so attached to her baby because that was her first child. And she was so attached to that baby, the age of the unavailable person. And so now not only was she grieving the loss of her baby, but now she has a fear of having another child for repetition of what happened. So the age of the unavailable person, age of the grieving person. And so the grieving person may say, let's go back to the mother here. The mother may say, listen, I am at the very top, the pinnacle of my childbearing age, and I really wanted a child, but I've lost my child. So now we're dealing with the age of the grieving person. And so because for them, there is no way that they can have another child, not that they're having a substitute. I don't want you to get me wrong, but because you can't substitute that. But the age of the unavailable person and the age of the grieving person and the reason and the cause of the loss, what happened? How did this loss happen? And there are a number of reasons why people go through losses, a number of reasons, and no one reason is greater than the other categorically, because each loss is meaningful to different people at different stages in their lives, on their process of their place of dependency. And then there's this thing of when you have an expectation of a loss, my attachment, talk about grief, and you have the expectation of a loss, but you just don't know. And so it just keeps dragging out and out and out. And this is what we call anticipatory grief. You are anticipating a grief, and it's almost like you are in a long state of hunger. I want to eat, but there is, I just can't eat. So you're in this long stage of nothingness. You just don't know. And for some people, it can be very draining, very, very draining. Some people may say, oh, I just wish this person would die so I can get on with my life. Anticipatory grief, when you are anticipating that. And so the other part, then, a desire for, for the person to die so that you can feel free. You can feel like, oh, at least now I can grieve the fact that they're not here. I can begin to reorganize and reconstruct my life because they are no longer. It doesn't mean that you wanted them to die. You're just saying, I can't take this much longer. I can't handle this anymore. And sometimes people go into, feel guilty when they say that. One woman said, I was going through this. Was it wrong for me to think like this? I said, well, I can't tell you if it's wrong. It's about where are you in your sense of who you are and taking care of yourself. There are some things where I don't think professionals or anybody else can tell a person whether they're right or they're wrong. And I think grieving and going through the grieving process, it may not be healthy. Some things are more healthy than others, but I don't know that I'm going to tell somebody, it's right or wrong. Of course, then it's time for the, and the higher degree of unhealthiness is the more that you really need to talk to them, Ellen G., are you suggesting that crutches, e.g. medication or other things should not be used when going through grief because of the attachment it may cause? No, I'm not suggesting that at all. I think it's important that you find a way to mitigate or to lessen the depression. Okay. I think it's, or lessen the attachment. What I am saying here is be careful that you neglect being robust yourself, because the best person to help you go through your attachment, now that you're in a state of detachment, it's yourself. But if you don't have that, then you're going to need people, places, and things to help you to go through these. But they need to do this in a healthy way, because some people might take advantage of your weakness, and you got to be very careful. And you may feel so comfortable with the crutches you have in quotation. You may feel so comfortable that you lose or you neglect to strengthen your bio, psycho, social, spiritual, emotional, and financial strength, muscle. And when you do that, you just continue living a life of dependency. So no, I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying be very careful. Be very, very careful. Okay. What needs to happen? Fully invest in the grieving process. You must fully invest in the grieving process. And in order to do that, you can't go into it partially saying, wishing and hoping and saying, well, did it really happen? Did it really not happen? You must fully invest yourself in that. And by that, you surround yourself with a good support system. People, places, and things. A good support system so that you can grieve and have the support that you need to go through your grief and your pain, and have people available to you when you want them to be available. And you need to have the space to be by yourself when you want to be by yourself, fully investing in the grief process. And one of the ways you become fully invested in the grief process is to come to the reality that it is what that you are where you are because of your loss, and you must accept it. Some people have difficulty accepting the loss. And when they have difficulty accepting the loss, they waffle back and forth, acting like it is. And sometimes they're smiling like that they didn't have a loss, and sometimes they're crying like they had a loss. And it's kind of a difficult. So fully invest in the grief process. Understand the impact of the loss. What does that loss look like for you? You know, it's not going to be the same for everybody else. You're talking about yourself. And the way to, you know, one of the ways to make sure that you take a look at what does this loss look like is to do what I call the mirror work. It's almost like you're looking in the mirror. You're not in the mirror. You're having a reflection in the mirror, and you're talking to yourself in the mirror, and you're going through that, and you're being realistic about your loss and the pain that's associated with the loss. You need to go through all of those things, and don't tell yourself that it has not happened, or it's just a figment of my imagination, because then if you don't go down through that, then the mourning process, remember grieving is your experience of the loss. Mourning is how you act it out. Mourning are the things that you do. You have a funeral, you have a repast, those are the mourning, and then you have mourners who will come with you. But grief is an experience that only you can have, while others can join in the mourning process. So these are some of the things that need to happen, and make sure that you are at a stage of reality in all of this. And like I said, surround yourself with as much support as possible. Okay. So come to terms with your own morbidity. You know, when people that are important to you, when they pass, when they're no longer available, when they die, sometimes it forces you to take a look at your own morbidity, especially if you were close to their age. You know, morbidity is the death factor. What's going to happen to me? When am I going to die? And sometimes we kind of a dry rot on the inside because we become so focused on when am I going to die that I stop doing things. I shut things down. So now I'm going into it may be early stages of grief, but it can be so devastating that I die from my grieving, and or my mortality. It's my sickness. So I have this terminal disease, or I have this, or I have that, or I know somebody, who died from this, and somebody else I know died from this, and I think I got some of that. And so now you go into so you got to come to terms with your own mortality. Don't project what somebody else has got onto you, because then you're gonna have to deal with you and deal with them. You start researching everything for yourself, and not that you shouldn't, but Google becomes your best friend. And sometimes sometimes a lot of information can become very troublesome. You got to find safety in this healing piece. Okay. And trust. So let me tell you about safety and trust. There is a relationship between safety and trust. I remember, we have a neighbor, and they had a new dog, and the dog was a kind of a big puppy, and the first time they was walking around the block and the dog saw me, the dog was railing and trying to get to me and trying to just carrying on. And then he said to me, "Oh, it's just a puppy." I said, I know. And then I know why the dog is doing that. The dog does not feel safe. Does not feel safe. See, if something does not feel safe, it will go into self-protection mode. But when the dog got to the point where the dog felt safe around me, the dog could trust me, and then the dog would come to me. The dog came to me, a friend of, a neighbor around the ways here. The dog got closer to me. So safety and trust in the healing. Do you feel safe where you are, in the environment where you are going through your healing? Do you feel that you can trust yourself? And do you feel that you have enough people who you can trust? So in other words, have some understanding of the quality of attachment between the actors. The actor here simply means that between you and the other person or persons, people, places, or things. But in this case, it's going to be people, because places and things are not actors. They are sedate. They don't move. They don't have any action, but people, they do. And so, the other thing too is sometimes when people are not available to you, it's not because they don't like you. It's because there's something about you going through your grieving that reminds them of something about their own losses. And the more time they spend with you, the more time they spend kind of opening up the wound again. And so they would rather distance themselves from you. So it's not because of you. It's because of them going through, you are a reminder of what's going on in their lives. All right. And so we are coming down now to the end of this. I think there might be just one more slide that I want to engage you in. And if we don't get it up this week, we will certainly get it up at another time. But I do want to thank you so much for just hanging in there with me, dealing with attachment as it relates to grief. And then at another time, we're going to talk about the detachment, the other end of the spectrum on this, and reasons why detachment is so important in the grieving process, and some of the mechanisms that kind of lead to that. Okay, so this is Dr. Kit on the Shake Up. Thank those of you that are online. Thank you for your post, and please like, follow, share, and subscribe. This thing that I'm talking about here is something that has touched every human being on the planet. Everybody on the planet has lost somebody. And you know, and it's just a real thing, but it's not something that, it's so painful that we try to gloss over sometimes, okay, or anesthetize ourselves so we don't have to go through it with the pain. So, you know, like, share, subscribe, and follow. And if you'd like to be a part of this of the Shake Up, please contact my team at drkitspeaks@gmail.com. We'll get you on camera or off camera. Just remember, it's not your face so much that's important, or the lack of it on the screen. It is the information that you have right here. This is what's most important, but we still love to see you, okay? So thank you so much. Be well blessed. God work his favor in you, and we'll see you again. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, that one. Oh, some folks are saying thanks. Those of you that are saying thank you, I thank you for just hanging in there with me. And I'm hoping that I might have said, yeah, Christine, yes, thank you so much. I'm hoping that I might have said something that has given you some clarity. It may not ease your pain, but it might help you to understand why you're going through what you're going through. Okay? So thanks much, and we'll see you again. Be blessed. Have yourselves a good night. Bye-bye.